There are apparently 285 legendary primary weapons in Destiny 2 that aren't sunset right now, meaning for any one given weapon type, you could have 20 to 30 different options to choose from, on top of the 2 different primary weapon slots being energy and kinetic slot weapons, which highly affect your entire loadout. That is a lot of decision making when it comes to choosing the best primary weapon to run. So in this video, I'm going to go through every single primary weapon slot in the game and go over what I think is the best legendary weapon to run in that slot. Just to keep it simple, that means I'm going over 2 of each primary weapon. This includes auto rifles, SMGs, pulse rifles, scout rifles, hand cannons, and sidearms. And then obviously what is the best option for the kinetic slots, and then the best option for the energy slot. I also won't be going over legendary bows. I know it is a primary weapon, but I don't really use bows too often in PvE myself, unless it's an exotic, so I don't feel like I can really give a great answer to that weapon type. So overall, we're gonna have 12 weapons in total. So let's start things off with the submachine guns first. In the kinetic slot, I think it's a no-brainer that submission is going to be best in class. This is a craftable 900 RPM SMG, which offers the best feel and ad clear amongst all other SMG frames currently in the game. 900 RPMs have reigned supreme for a while, and although there are a few kinetic options, submission has by far the best rolls. My personal favorite role is going to be Overflow with Frenzy, but Demolitionist is also in the final column, which is a fantastic perk for grenade-based builds. With Overflow, the increased mag size on ammo pickup is great, but Frenzy is what makes this weapon extremely strong. SMGs are already arguably the best primary weapon in the game. 900 RPMs are even better, and then with Frenzy on top of this, you have an endlessly buffed weapon where you get 15% increased damage against everything, you get max reload speed, and max handling. The Origin trait Soul Drinker also grants health back whenever you reload, where more health is granted for each enemy you kill before reloading. This weapon is also 100% craftable, so there is no RNG in getting literally the best kinetic SMG in the entire game. Simply farm your 5 red border weapon frames from Vow of the Disciple, and you're done. Moving on to the energy slot, obviously we have Funnelweb. Just like with submission, Funnelweb is a 900 RPM SMG, which also happens to roll with Frenzy. So once again, we have an SMG, which is the best in class with 15% more damage. We get max handling and max reload speed as long as we're in combat. When it comes to the third column perks, the 2 main options you want are going to be Perpetual Motion or Subsistence. Perp Motion helps a bunch when you're going from out of combat back into combat, offering some additional handling, reload speed, and stability in those cases. And then Subsistence, on the other hand, effectively increases your magazine size. Each kill grants 17% of the magazine straight back, and this can stack with the Origin trait Vice Stinger, which can refill 25% of the magazine to really reduce your time spent reloading. Since this is void, it will hit a bit less than a kinetic option, but it does also get volatile rounds, which easily allow it to out-ad clear every other primary in the game, as long as you're on a void subclass. As far as SMGs go, I do think Showrunner, Callous Minitool, the Iklos SMG, and then Unforgiven are all great honorable mentions, just overall not the best in slot. Before we continue on with the rest of the primary weapons, I wanted to take a moment to talk about today's sponsor, which is War Thunder. War Thunder is the most in-depth vehicle combat game ever created, and it's a perfect sponsor for today's video because in War Thunder you have access to over 2,000 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships, each of which has an insane level of detail in-game where all the individual components and weapons are modeled, offering a highly accurate combat experience. My favorite part about War Thunder has always been the in-air combat. I used to play this game a ton back on PS4, and the vehicles in-game also span over 100 years of real-world development. So you guys can fly around on some of the first combat planes ever created, or some of the most advanced ones. You also don't need any fancy hardware to play War Thunder. You can fly any aircraft using just a mouse or even a controller thanks to the intuitive mouse aim mode, which is perfect because War Thunder is completely free on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. You guys can play War Thunder right now using the link down below in my description, and players who haven't played in the last 6 months can get a large bonus pack including vehicles, boosters, and more using my link too. Hopping straight back into the list, I think autos right now are a bit subjective. Some people are going to like 720s, others like 600s, and some people might even like 450s and 360s. But when it comes to auto rifles, specifically in the kinetic slots, I think the best is currently Rufus's Fury. This is a Strand 720 RPM, which is a rapid fire frame, specifically with one of my favorite perk combinations in the entire game, which is Demolitionist and Frenzy. Just like the SMGs, Frenzy is great because of that 15% increased damage, max reload, and max handling, and especially compared to a lot of other perks, having a 15% increase in damage all the time is usually better than having a stronger damage perk if that stronger perk isn't up that often. Then Demo makes this slot in perfectly with most builds, offering instant reloads on grenade throw and energy to our grenade on weapon final blows as well. There is actually nothing bad about Rufus's Fury other than maybe its damage at further ranges, and the weapon is also a laser beam as well, making it extremely easy to land crits at those further distances. When it comes to the energy slot, I actually struggled to make a decision here, not because there's a ton of really good options, but because nothing really stands out as the best option. I ended up deciding on Gnawing Hunger. This is an adaptive Void 600 RPM, and the main reason I use this weapon is because of its Void synergy while also having Demolitionist. Especially in endgame content, a lot of damage perks like Swashbuckler, Rampage, Kill Clip don't end up being very useful, so utility perks like Demo help a ton, because your grenade is much more likely to get you kills, synergize with your subclass, and keep you alive. Then in the third column, Subsistence is going to be really solid with the weapon, but I do also like Zen Moment because it turns it into a laser beam as well after we deal damage for a little bit. If you guys don't like Gnawing Hunger, then Sweet Sorrow does have some decent rolls and it is craftable, but overall, I think auto rifles don't really have too many standout options in the current sandbox. Up next, we have hand cannons, and in the kinetic slot, I think Fatebringer is a no-brainer. Hand cannons are becoming extremely viable in the meta with some recent changes over the last few seasons, and 140s are still by far the best. Fatebringer also rolls with explosive payload and Firefly. Explosive payload is a small damage increase, upwards of 15% in some cases, but more important, it makes half the damage of each shot immune to any falloff, which helps at longer ranges. Firefly, on the other hand, makes an explosion with our crit final blows, making our ad clear more effective and allowing us to clear larger groups of enemies in a single kill. Firefly also grants 50 reload speed for 6 seconds after a precision final blow, so the major downside to hand cannons, which is their slow reload speed, is negated. Alternatively, Frenzy is also available in the final column, so if you don't manage to get precision final blows too often, like if you're in endgame content or going up against things that are harder to hit crits on, you can still get the increased damage, reload, and handling. In the energy slot, I think there are a few options that could be chosen as the best in slot, but I think Zaouli's Bane takes the cake. Just like with Fatebringer, you can get explosive payload and Firefly, which is a fantastic roll, but since it's solar, you can also get incandescent. This will synergize way better with solar builds and even allow us to trigger ignitions, which are way stronger than the Firefly explosion. The major downside to Zaouli's Bane is the reload speed though. The reload is terrible. It honestly might be the worst 140 reload time in the entire game or in all of D2 history, so having Firefly does help a ton. The upside, if you do want to run something like Incandescent and you don't get that reload speed, is that you really just need a way to increase your reload. You can do that with Ophidian aspects, you can use reload speed mods, or run something like Solar Hunter and get reload from on your mark. Compared to the rolls of other hand cannons, I think Zaouli's is definitely the best option, but I do think Nation of Beasts is another solid alternative if you guys don't like Zaouli's personally. Moving along on the list, we have scout rifles, and in the kinetic slot, I think by far the best option is Nightwatch. Most people do have this rolled with overflow and explosive payload. It is a 180 RPM, which is amongst the best of the scout archetypes, if not the best, and explosive payload feels great on this. We get that slight increase in damage, upwards of 15%, which really helps if you're missing crits. And then Overflow is a great secondary perk to double our magazine size anytime we collect a special or heavy ammo brick. This god roll used to be 100% guaranteed from the very first mission in the New Light campaign. Shawhan would give it to you, but to my knowledge, it no longer drops there. You still get a Night Watch, I just think it's a really bad roll or it's super mid. So if you guys do want a solid kinetic scout rifle alternative, Hung Jury is the next best option in my opinion. Here you're going to miss out on explosive payload, but the rest of the third and fourth column perks are really solid. When it comes to the energy slot, on the other hand, I think there are a few options that you could argue are best in slots, but I think Tarnished Metal beats everything out for a couple of reasons. Tarnished Metal is a 200 RPM arc scout, so almost identical to a 180. In a lot of cases, 200 RPMs are going to be slightly better. In other cases, 180s might be preferred. Tarnished Metal has insane rolls though. The best roll in my opinion is very simple, which is going to be rapid hit and explosive payload. Once again, explosive helps with the increased body shot damage and minimizes your damage fall off. Then rapid hit is going to help drastically increase reload speed and stability. Every precision hit grants a stacking increase in the weapon's stats, so we can cap out at 25 extra stability and 60% increased reload speed at 5 stacks, making any weapon feel great. And overall, I think this is the best and easiest roll to actually use. We do also have perks like Volt Shot and Dragonfly in the final column though, along with Demolitionist in the third column to make for some more diverse rolls. And then finally, the best part about Tarnished Metal is that the weapon is craftable with the base level 1 roll giving Shoot to Loot and explosive payload. So by having this weapon craftable, you not only have the best energy scout rifle in the entire game, but you also have something that seconds as the best weapon in general for just ammo collection when using Shoot to Loot to collect bricks and reload weapons. When it comes to pulse rifles, they're kind of like auto rifles, maybe even some scouts in my opinion, where different people are really going to like different archetypes, and a lot of it can come down to preference. But almost every archetype is going to be solid for PvE without anything sticking out as the best archetype overall. So for the kinetic slot, I ended up going with Smite of Merain. Compared to at least most of the other kinetic options, Smite Merain had the best overall roles to choose from. The role I think is one of the best is going to be Demolitionist and Firefly, where Demo once again is used for the increased grenade energy on kill, and then Firefly really does a lot for the increased damage, add clear, and then the 50 reload speed on crit final blows. Additionally, Smite Merain does also have stats for all and one for all, so you could lean into the higher 35% damage perk with increased stability, handling, range, and reload speed. The only major perk that I do wish Smite Merain had was rapid hit. This feels great on pulses, and it kind of sucks when a pulse doesn't have it. Other kinetic options like Disparity and Autumn Wind do have really solid rolls as well, and I even really like Sacred Provenance, which could be getting some insane rolls when that weapon becomes craftable. When it comes to the energy slot, on the other hand, I went with Insidious, which I think is a clear winner. This thing is a 450 aggressive pulse frame, so it's a slower 4-round burst, but it is a laser. I personally like running rapid hits and then one for all. One for all is a 35% damage increase, which procs after hitting 3 enemies within 3 seconds of each other. It's surprisingly very easy to proc on a pulse, and then with rapid hit, this basically guarantees max reload speed. With a 4-round burst weapon, a single burst in the head of an enemy means we are getting pretty much the max reload speed it provides. I typically use this in GMs whenever I need a pulse rifle with champion mods, so for that reason, I think Vorpal Weapon could also be another solid option on the weapon if you really just use it for GMs and dealing with champions and bosses. Otherwise, in the third column, stats for all, Demolitionist, and Firefly all also exist, so there's a bunch of different perk combinations to run with. Oversoul Edict is another great energy option as well, but other than those two, nothing really sticks out to me as an insane role in the energy slot. Lastly, to end the video off, we have Sidearms. Despite some recent buffs, Sidearms are still definitely not meta, but some roles are definitely solid. In the kinetic slot, I think Mykel's Reverence is the best option currently. In PvE, 450 RPMs, aka rapid fire frames, feel the best. And Mykel's Reverence is a Strand 450 with solid perks. In the final column, you either have Frenzy or Paracausal Affinity. Frenzy is a smaller 15% damage increase that offers a ton to the weapon, but Paracausal is a slightly larger 20%, which is going to be much easier to proc without that bonus handling and reload speed. In the third column, you're pretty limited to rewind rounds. I think the extra ammo you get back helps out the most compared to any other perk, but you could also potentially opt for something like Elemental Capacitor, depending on the subclass you're running. Then finally, in the energy slot, we have Brigands Law. This thing is insane. I love this sidearm. It feels great, and it's actually effective in endgame PvE. The god roll is going to be Feeding Frenzy and then Volt Shot. With Volt Shot, you can easily clear a large room of adds in just 2 to 3 activations of the perk, which is great because that is going to be constantly proccing Feeding Frenzy for faster reloads. With Volt Shot, all you need to do is get a kill, then upon reloading, your next enemy that you hit will become jolted, offering increased ad clear and damage for you. So to be effective, all you want to do is constantly be triggering Volt Shot, then reload so that you have the perk active again, and then keep reapplying it to different enemies. So being able to spam reloads with Feeding Frenzy makes for a great perk combination. This is easily one of the best ad clear primaries in the entire game, despite it only being a sidearm. That is the entire list of the best legendary primary weapons in the game. Once again, a massive thanks to War Thunder for sponsoring today's video. Make sure you click the link in the description down below to download War Thunder for free on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation, and start War Thunder off with your free pack of vehicles, boosters, and more. I think this list is pretty spot on. I don't really see an argument for many other weapons being better than the ones I chose, especially for SMGs, hand cannons, and scout rifles, which tend to be the better primary weapon types currently in the game. I think those choices are easily best in slots. Also, around 7 of the 12 total weapons are craftable, and at least one of each weapon is craftable as well, so you can easily guarantee yourself these god rolls today. If you guys are newer to Destiny, make sure to let me know if this list helps you guys out, and if you're a veteran, let me know where you agree and disagree with the list. Also, if you guys are new to the channel, I do stream a ton over on my Twitch, where we do a bunch of low-mans, speedruns, and other end-game PvE challenges. A link to my Twitch will be in the description down below if you guys ever want to drop by. As always, have a good one. Peace.